Good evening, everyone. I trust that you are all well and enjoying getting ready for whatever you're doing for Christmas. I have the pleasure of doing the last Pentacolor Live of this year, which is always an honour. Let me just catch my own social media pages up. I'm Gill Humphrey on Facebook and Instagram, or a crafty surgeon. And then I can pop that. Oh, she says, oh, that's clever, isn't it? No, we'll tuck that back where it lives and pop that over there. Cool. And just let the clocks turn around. Have I got everything? Oh, I do believe I have got everything. That's always super duper, isn't it? Always helpful when you have what you need around you. Oh, let's just see if anyone's going to come in. Doesn't really matter if no one does, because we'll be doing the project anyway. Good evening, Connie. Welcome, my darling. Thank you for joining me and for your support through the last year. I have a plan. Some of you may have seen my advent calendar challenge for Pentart. So I'm going to do something sort of on those lines, but different. But that one was very definitely not in traditional colours. I've just taken some extra bits of gesso off this wooden board. So I have a long wooden board. It's about 6 inches by 18, I think. The size for me was dictated by the size of the components that I'm going to pop on the top of it, and we're going to do traditional Christmas. But I thought that I would go through the steps and my thought processes for my Advent Challenge live, but do it in different colours. So I'm deliberately not priming this piece, though I have already primed lots of stuff. Good evening, Sarah. Thank you for tagging Julie into the live. So I have two different paints here. I've got some acrylic paint matte in red wine. I've got antique gold, and I've pine green. So really traditional Christmas colours, which I think hopefully will work through. And we're going to be controversial because we're going to do some blobbing. I know, why not? Why not? We might just need two brushes to blob with, though, rather than that. I haven't got Facebook open on there, and I thought I'd told that to shut up. So there we are. Don't understand what's gone on there. Good evening, Carol. Welcome. So let's just take these two. As I say, this is a plain wooden board. We can be completely random with this because if this is just a base layer. We will be coming back to the colours ultimately. So traditional Christmas in the sense that the words are traditional, the motifs are traditional, and the colours are traditional, which is relatively unusual for me because my Christmas colours tend to be much paler. So let's just pop these onto here. And as I say, we're just going to blob some colours on, which will work quite nicely. This is a base layer, so it doesn't matter if it's looks a bit scruffy, because it will all ultimately, I assure you, come together with what we're going to do. But this will give some variety to our piece, rather than one of the layers all looking exactly the same. Because that's cool, isn't it? Yeah, we can do what. There we are. So yeah. Good evening. Thank you, Leslie. Yes, he is post-surgery. He's got a new heart valve in. which was done last Thursday, which is why I wasn't live last Thursday in my regular slot, because I didn't really feel that I could commit to doing my live last week. I wasn't quite sure where my head was going to be, because a successful outcome was very much not guaranteed, I'm afraid, just because of the nature of what he was having done. Anyway, I'm delighted to say that it has been a success and he is happily home, so that's all good. There we are. Have we got enough red? Yeah, I think we've got enough red for that one. For this there we are. I'll pop that in there, and I had another one of those brushes. There we are. So I've now got the antique gold. Now then, and if it mixes up in, it's not going to matter. I'm going to pick up some of that red. It doesn't matter. This is a base layer. It's not going to show. It's difficult to use metallics with crackles, and you certainly can't use it as the top layer for the one component crackle, but it will work very well in the base layer to give a metallic-y colour. So hence the fact that it's going on here. So this is two traditional Christmas colours then, the red and the gold. Doesn't matter if the colour, some of that red's not completely dry. That's also just fine at the moment. I just need to have a layer. Don't particularly want it to be fully blended, but you can see, we'll just make a what I call a messy start, but it won't be, I assure you, by the time we finish. If you didn't want the red to mix in, you could quite happily dry it before adding these, but I actually think it helps to give a slightly more blended look and add some colour variation into what we're going to do. Oh. There we are. So has everyone got everything they need ready for Christmas? Have you got your presents bought? Have you got your Christmas festive dinner planned? I know not everyone celebrates Christmas, but it's difficult to get away from at this time of the year. This is the last Pentart Live for 2025. I will be back again in the new year. Yeah, Pentart haven't got rid of me. That's always a joyful activity, isn't it? So I continue my Pentart journey, which is a blessing. And yeah, here we are. So we now have a wishy messy background. It is but one layer. So let's try and give this a good layer. Looks like it's going to be a quiet evening for watching. I guess that's because everyone is busy. I also appreciate you've nearly finished, Sarah. Are you at home, my darling, on your own, or are you off with your mum for Christmas? Let's just get this dry. Okay, it's not going to stay that colour. It's just got a base layer. Actually, quite pretty as it is. I think it actually looks prettier on camera and less messy on screen than it does in real life. Yeah. Let's get this dry before we start the next one. So, what says traditional Christmas to everyone who's watching? I know it's a nativity, family, celebration, colors, houses, poinsettia, red, gold colours. I don't know. need to put things to different people, I guess. But feel free to comment in the see that a little bit there. Yeah, anyway, so I know what you think of this traditional Christmas. I've definitely gone off piece this year. I haven't got a tree up. I didn't feel like putting a tree up. I've got lots of other decorations up instead. Because it's important that we do what makes us feel happy. Right, hopefully, with a bit of luck, that'll be dry. Very good, Sarah. Well, I hope you have a lovely time. So this is my one component crackle medium, and this is the magic that will pull everything together. You've seen me use it a lot. I love it when you see me use crackles a lot, and I needed something that was going to work effectively. So on my Advent challenge piece, the joy with the snowflake, I used pinks and reds. I had a person in mind when I made that, and that's the joy of crafting. It is day 15, I think, on the Advent calendar, but you can have a look at the Advent calendar on Pentart's page. You know, and go back and pick it up there if you haven't already seen them make. And their colour for Christmas for the person who was it intended for was red and pink. And then I went off piste and added a beautiful patina green colour because I just felt it needed some contrast. And I'm glad to say that the person who has received it now really liked it, because that's all that matters. So have we got some one component crackle over everything? Good evening, Juliana. I have just painted a wooden board with a mix of matte acrylic paint and gold metallic paint, and then put a layer of one component crackle on there, and I'm going to pop that onto the floor. Oh, so I'm almost thinking about recreating my Advent piece, but using different colours and different words, just to show that actually all you need is a little bit of imagination, and then you can create something cohesive for you. Yeah, taxes in the UK, no doubt, will cost a small fortune. So there we are. That's on that. So we were asked when we were doing the Advent challenge to think a little bit outside the box, and I am such a literal person. That's a real challenge for me. So I used my snowflake as an O in that word, and then that set me thinking as to what else I could use and do something similar. So I've got the word Noel and some resin pieces. It wouldn't be me if I didn't have some resin pieces, would it? Of course it wouldn't. The resin pieces are from a mould from Pentart from last year. I think, yes, from last year. These are MDF shapes that I bought from a well-known river shop, so I suspect that you'll be able to get them in most parts of the world. And I have just added some primer paste onto the sides that are coloured, and I'm going to add that beautiful red wine colour onto here. Now, if I'm sensible, I'll do the edges before I do the front, and then I won't end up with too much of a mucky hand. And we're going to keep these all the same, although they will be different ultimately, because we're going to add some extra decorations onto them, because why not, indeed. So the problem with anything like this is that you end up with lots of edges to get into, lots of nooks and crannies, but it's worth it, I think, to do this. Good evening, Diane. Thank you. I am, wow, all is all is good in my world. Which she says, getting red paint on her fingers. Yeah, because why wouldn't I end up with red paint over everything? Yeah. So. Yeah, that's a nice layer over there. And because I've put the primer onto these MDF, MDF soaks up stuff badly, and it's already dark enough. So I would always prime MDF before painting, particularly if I'm only going to use one layer of paint, because I just think you get a nicer coverage. There we are. Let's just pop that onto there. So I'm using a wreath shape filled with poinsettia for my O, but you could use a half a bauble, the 2-part acrylic baubles. You could just add a large poinsettia and some greenery, a faux poinsettia. Yes, absolutely. I am very pleased that he's home, and I too hope he stays here. I do not require any complications. He's had a heart valve replaced, which is quite major surgery. Well, it's a they're now done minimally, but it's still quite a big high risk procedure, because they have to yes, they do funny things with the heart to allow it to get the valve in place, including stopping it. And there's never a guarantee when you stop a heart that it'll restart again. Anyway, I'm thankful that it did, and he's here to carry on and for us to have another Christmas together. I'm conscious I've just whacked my camera a couple of times. Fortunately, I haven't moved it very much, I don't think. But if it's made you feel seasick, I apologise profusely. There we are. Because the intention is not to make people seasick. Let's just make sure that's reasonably well covered. There we are. No, it's not. Because I know once these are in place, I've got no chance of being able to get at them without making a mess. There we are. Yeah, I love resin. But you could, if you don't want to use resin, and I appreciate that not everyone does want to use resin, you can use clay. You could use jewellery concrete. Quite happily, you could use jesmonite in your moulds, all of which will work. And clay is definitely non-toxic, stays softer and more mobile, great for putting on shaped surfaces. But you could use but needs needs a good time to dry. Jesmonite and the jewellery concrete will demould in about an hour, so that makes life easy. And they're definitely quicker if you don't want to have the chemicals associated with resin, because I appreciate that not everyone does want to be to have the chemicals of resin. There we are. So let's just do that. But then, of course, I'm going to have to blast these dry to move them. Hey ho, such is life. But they need to dry, so I might as well not worry about it. Pop that onto there. So we're keeping our colour palette very traditional. Look at the state of my hands already. Why would it not be? Why would it not be? Let me just move that border back and have another bit of that nearer the... she says. Is that the red? Hopefully. We've now got everything there. This red, I use lots of different reds from Pentacolor, Diane, but I use Bourdon, which is a more brownie based red, much richer, and then this one, which is called red wine, because it is just such a lovely touch shade. And I think for me it's very Christmas. It's a very Christmas colour. But it also is the red was used in Samperia Nutcracker collection from last year, which is, I think, where the mould came from, that release, and I think will still be available in the UK. But as you say, if you didn't have the moulds that I'm using, you could just as easily use a different poinsettia mould. There's lots of them on the market, or you could happily use a real poinsettia, a faux poinsettia, or you could make something within a bauble. You just need something that's going to be O-shaped to fit within the mould itself. Good. I think I might now be able to risk lifting these up and out of the way. Miracle of miracles. There we are. So 1, 2. Maybe that was a bit silly, but hey ho, maybe that wasn't quite as dry as I'd hoped it was going to be. Let's just pop these. Oh, I can see areas on for that one where I've definitely missed the paint. So let me just pop that onto there. We can always come back and double check some of these later on. Let's just pop that onto the floor. Let's pop that up. See, most of it I have managed to get. There can go over there. And I'm just going to de-yuck my fingers and clean this space up. Oh, absolutely. The wooden boxes off the Camembert are brilliant. Little shadow boxes, aren't they? Yeah, nice containers. Unless you stick them in the oven to bake your Camembert in, which means that they sometimes are a bit brittle. There we are. Let's just pop that over here. Right. Let's de-mess this. I'm always on the lookout for good bases for my makes, and there'll be lots of them in the shops now, selling off them and Christmas decorations. But I often use, I think some of the shaped charcuterie boards again are brilliant. And yes, I have my stash. Oh, it's interesting, Dan. I love fresh tuna. I do not like tin tuna. It's very different to my head. Right. Oh, good. Well, that'll do as a start. It might not be perfect. So, this is the mould from the Nutcracker collection from last year. It's one of the plastic moulds. And if you're hunting for it online, it's K3 PTA 4549. And these have been cast with white resin that dries white, so you could use the Pentart rapid resin to do that quite happily. That sets within an hour and remains moldable, so that's helpful, and can be painted directly, though I have already added my white primer paste to these. And this mold has an edge to it, a shadow around it all the way around. So we're just going to paint the edges and give it a blast dry before I pick up the rest. So I have a chalky paint here in cream white. So it's looking very white on screen, but I can assure you it is not white. It has a yellow undertone. So I'm just going to paint the bits that are around the edges and inside that don't. So this is definitely not accurate painting, because it's not the surface detail. It's because these moulds have a border to them, and I don't want that to be stark white. So we're going to just give them a little coat. The chalky paints adhere quite well even onto an unprimed resin surface, though my recommendation is that you will always prime first. I just think if you want, particularly for a piece that you might want to get out year after year after year, obviously if it's not going to last for more than a year, then it probably doesn't matter. But I think most people tuck their Christmas decorations away out, and get them out seasonally, don't they? Rather than, there are definitely lots of sales. I think the range put their Christmas goodies on sale in the UK last weekend, so they've probably got very little left. Have I treated myself to anything crafty for Christmas? Wow. No, I haven't, because I've got way too much stuff. But I did have my design team parcel arrive from Pentart today, which is definitely a lovely present to have. So I've got lots of nice wooden boards. I've restocked my rapid resin because I was out of it. Because we all know I use bucket loads of resin. I've got some mediums and paints, and I've got some metallic foils and things. Yeah, my choice of products. But no, I didn't really need anything. She says, I have got a big order of Christmas foliage arriving, which will not be for this year because it will get popped away for next year, because why not? There we are. So with base layer of this cream white. I did and ah about using this as the base layer for the contrast layer for the on top of my one component crackle, but I've decided against that. I'm going to use the dark green, the pine green, so that we've got a good contrast. But it's quite. So I've not got masses of moulds out tonight, but the ones I do have, I've got a fair amount of detail in them. That'll be famous last words. Now, do we want red poinsettia or cream poinsettia? I'm going to be adding some hints of gold. It doesn't matter which colour we choose. I'm quite happy to go with either as a concept. There we are. It was a very lovely gift to get in itself. So yes, I have what I need in my life. So I think my lovely daughter has, because she's already told me, although I haven't seen it, has treated me, I think, to a brand new Odie, because some of mine really need to go in a rubbish bin, because I sit here and craft in them and I get all sorts down them, and they really get to, and the ones I've got are about 3 years old, so I can't say that I haven't had my money's worth out of them, because I surely have. And I could just, we could just call it quits here, wouldn't we, and just add some details onto it. We're not going to. That would be far too simple, and that's not what I planned, and I've only just thought about it. But anyway, there we are. We are now base coated. Cream is right on the centre brush to the outer leaf. That will make my life very simple for some of this, won't it? Because I've already got that cream on there. What am I looking for? I'm looking for my... I can do that. We will put some green. There's some mistletoe berries in some of these and some holly. So, yeah, sounds like a plan. And that will absolutely work. But now we need to get another layer on here. We now need to have these dry. Otherwise, I shall pick them up and promptly get cream paint where I don't want it. Ooh, what a good idea. Blankets and towels I always donate to friends who've got dogs, because they always will take those. It hadn't occurred to me to donate the Udis, but that's a good, really good thought process. That's definitely doable. Definitely doable. And then I'll need to, I think I might need some small brushes for this, but that's okay. Have I put many small brushes in here? Can I get to them? Ah. Yeah. The challenge I have when I'm doing like the poinsettia molds is sometimes working out what's meant to be leaf and what's meant to be poinsettia. We will see. Let's get this dry. Because there's only one way of doing creating like this, and that's step by step by step, isn't it? Yeah, patience is a virtue. I live in my Udis, Helen. For those of you who don't know Helen Louise is the owner of Design Storm Distribution, and just like Home Interiors, and Design Storm Distribution, she is the UK importer and distributor of all things Pentart, and she and her retailer network now have a really good range of Pentart products. So so there really shouldn't be a lot of problems with you sourcing them now in the UK. Whereas I know at some stage I've been using them and it's been very difficult. I've got shoes on in my conserve, and a fan heater on at my feet because that just makes them, to keep me warm. But also the fan heater is helping to dry some of the stuff I put at the edges. Right, excellent. So let me just grab some extra colours because why not? Why not? Why not? Because I don't want everything in the same colour palette. Right. So let us start to pick out some. That might be a challenge. There's a piece there that hasn't coated very well, but hey ho. Right. So let us pick up. So this is pine green. Helen, you don't need to be buying new ranges. You've got loads. She's a little gem. She has so many fabulous ranges. Absolutely worth checking out. So that is pine green. We will need loads of that, but not for this. Let's just get rid of that so we don't contaminate. Absolutely, definitely. And we have olive green, which is a colour that I use a lot. And we have some thorn. And I might chicken out. I have got some brown because there's some bits on some of those that might benefit from being brown. But we might be chicken tonight and not do that. We might just leave that to pop through. Right. Let us treat ourselves. Yeah, it would be really dangerous if I owned a shop because I am totally an addictive crafter. So let us find some brushes that aren't too cream crafted. They might take me a while to paint with. Oh. So there we are. So let's pick out some of these. So let's have our holly leaves in that pine green. There we are. We say, oh dear, she says, and popping it onto the edge that she doesn't want it on, but hey ho, or maybe it isn't. Maybe it, anyway. We have ways of concealing. We can always go back in and tidy up afterwards. Sometimes it's just easier to get the colours down. Aha, that's cream paint that's still wet. So that's a holly leaf. There we are. So yeah, I would always suggest when you're doing this that you let each layer properly dry, because when you heat dry it with it tends to skim over the surface, so go matte, but actually the layers underneath are sometimes still quite wet, and then when you paint on top of them you disturb it. But hey ho, it will be fine in the grand scheme of things. There we are. I can see that there's I do have another red for the berries, because I'm not too sure I want red wine coloured berries. Yeah, so that's that hasn't got holly on it, but that has. You see, there's nothing like creating yourself a challenge each evening for your lives, is there really? Of course not. Of course not, because why would you not make life easy for yourself by doing something simple? Just doing it white with gold would have been so much simpler. But hey ho, I did title it Traditional Christmas, so Traditional Christmas is what it's going to be. So I do think it would look quite nice in just the white with the gold dry brushing, or just waxing, to be fair, would work. There we are. These are dimensional pieces. It's always a bit of a challenge. There's more white paint into there that's not wet, that's not dry yet, but hey ho. I'm not intending getting out any umbre or today. I'm going to pull it together with alternatives. Yeah. I always make my life a challenge, don't I? Right, now to find the holly, of which there's lots, on this big mould. There we are. That's a holly leaf. It's just a question of going round. If we're going to do the poinsettia in the cream, that solves that as a problem. That's a leaf. Right, that is definitely a holly leaf. I'm going by shape on the mould as much as anything else. And of course, if I just decided to paint them all the same green, that might have made my life easier too. But hey ho, again, that wouldn't be so simple, would it? So those are holly leaves there. I don't think there's more over that, but that's a holly leaf over there. That's a holly leaf. So let's just pop that into there. It all adds to the fun of life, doesn't it? And the art with these molds is just to pick, just to set yourself down with the mold and just take your time. And bit by bit by bit, the layers will come together. And you can always go back if you've missed a leaf and you decide it should be a different colour and add it in later on. There's nothing that says you can't. Right, excellent. So that is a holly leaf. I'm rather hoping that by painting in the holly leaves, it'll help me define where I'm putting red berries long term. There we are. There's some more holly leaves. I might have to get the brown out. This looks like a wooden stick there. It's the only one on the whole piece, but it definitely looks like it should be wood. Whereas the rest don't look like they need to be wood. There we are. Hey ho. Oh, so my phone has now gone dead, but that's okay. That was very nice of it. So the only comments I'm going to pick up will be the ones that are pick up on StreamYard. So please don't think I'm ignoring you. Hopefully, I will see all of your comments coming up on StreamYard. That's how it's meant to work. But I'm not completely convinced that that's how it does work all of the time. Is that a holly leaf? Yes, I think that is a holly leaf tucked into there. Just from its shape. The eyes are going to read it as a holly leaf regardless. Now I've painted it in that green. There we are. And as I say, you can always come back if you miss one and pop the right colour in later on. That's a holly leaf. That is a holly leaf. And there's a holly leaf tucked into there. That's going to help define those. So hopefully I've got the holly leaves there. You'd hope. There's no holly leaves on that one. There's no holly leaves on that one, but there are holly leaves on here. So let's just do this one. There being a reason why we've got all of these pieces, but you know, again, you wouldn't necessarily have to do all of these pieces. You could just leave it with the letters and the O and not add anything extra, and it would still look lovely. That's still wet. I can see that is still wet from the cream layer that hasn't completely dried, but hey ho, we'll not worry too greatly about that for the moment. We'll just paint over it. Yeah. Yeah, that would work. That will work. Yeah. Oh yeah. Artistic license is a good thing. Right. So let's just take some of that. And then let's just paint these. This is definitely not holly leaf. It's more mistletoe. So the thorn, I think, will work quite nicely for that, mixed with a bit of that dark green because we had a mucky brush, but that's also okay. We might have to darken up the olive. It might be a little bit too bright. There we are. Turning your pieces around definitely works. Allows you to see what you're seeing. Let's just have that as a green twig. Mm-hmm. All right. At least get all of the leaves of the same sort of shape in the same sort of colours. Because why not? Without moving too much of that dark green around. Yeah. So concentration time. Tongue sticking out, not a good look. So we'll stick it back in where it's meant to be. There. There we are. It won't take a silly amount of time, as we know. I don't tend to take massive amount of time with my painting. And I do only have the pieces that are in front of me, which is often about half of what I often will use on a live, I think, albeit one of them being ginormous. But hey ho, why not? Why not add to the fun of life? There we are. And off life you can spend as long as you want, can't you? Which makes life much easier. Of course, why not? Why not have a different leaf on every single piece? Because that would be too easy to have all of them exactly the same, wouldn't it? Of course it would. Yeah. I can just see a little bit of that dark green needing to go into there. Right. Aha. So let's just plod on. You could do one piece from start to finish and then pick up the next one, but by doing by colour block like this, it will allow the layers in between to dry a little bit, and that reduces the risk of contamination and colour spreading. So it's not a disaster if it does spread a little bit. There we are. We might find a green pen later on. Do you not like marzipan, darling? Sarah, even? I know it's not for everyone. It's for me. I'd rather have the marzipan than the rest of the cake. But hey ho. But I'm being a good girl. No, I'm genuinely happy to be being a good girl. I am down an awful lot of weight because I've gone from a size 20 to a size 12 this year. So, without sharing too many personal details, I think that's something to be super proud of. And is there still some more to go? Yeah, there's another 2 dress sizes to go. But hey ho, I no longer feel like a fat Oompa Loompa, which is the only reason I've been doing it. Because I didn't like feeling like a fat Oompa Loompa. My words, no one else's. Let's just paint that leaf in there. Right. Have I got all of those greenery bits? Yes. There's a leaf in there. And then there's those branches which we're going to pop into that. There we are. Thank you. Let's just pop those into that. Those into that. Those are those bits. Right. Whilst we've got this colour out, we'll add in just into those berries onto there. Right, let us now tackle here. That paint's drying out. I'm just going to thin it down a bit. It'll help it move better. There we are. Yeah. Oh, and guess who now can see a holly leaf that she clearly missed the last time round. But that's what I said would happen, didn't I? I can guarantee that that's what was going to happen. Pretty much. That's one of those leaves. That's one of those leaves on the surface, quite white. I'm not too sure, but it is. That's definitely not a poinsettia leaf, nor is that one. Yeah, and we'll go back and we'll do that. I don't believe that that's a poinsettia leaf either. Yeah. Berries have definitely usually have bits of green at the base of them, so I'm not worried about having contaminated those areas. Right. What I don't want to do is then get the wrong colour on the poinsettias, which we're going to use Diane's suggestion for, because I think it will work beautifully. As we come round, it becomes easier, doesn't it? I can then pick out the pieces a little bit more manageably. There we are. Yeah. Wow. It's not actually taking. Well, I hope it. I've no idea what time it is. I never pay attention to the time when I'm doing live, because why would I do that? Right. Let's just pick up that and add into that holly leaf that we clearly decided to completely miss. So that doesn't need anything, that doesn't need anything, that does, those do, and we'll need some red. Let me just pick up a different red for the berries. So the poinsettia we're going to leave it in, but we need some poinsettia green leaf. So let's just take some of that pine green and some of the olive. Oh, look at that. There we are. That's a nicer, brighter green. Much brighter. There we are. Right, let's just pick up a few. Oh, she says, dropping stuff. So, flower, 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 flower. But that is definitely, mind you, see, poinsettias are leaves, aren't they? It's the yellow bits in the centre that are actually the flowers, the tiny inconspicuous bits that you can barely see. But hey ho. Because why would nature not be perverse? That will work. Do I want any? No, I don't think I do want any more on there. Excellent. So let's just pick out some leaves from here just to add another shade of green in. And make it look less flat. There we are, there's a leaf there. So we'll have that as a leaf. And then we'll have, that definitely can be a leaf tucked out there. 2 layers, so that one can be a leaf as well. Okay. 2 layers, that's not a leaf, but that one can be a leaf. 1, 2, here we are. So we're just counting the 2 layers that I want in the cream onto that. So we've got 2 layers of red. That will work. And then let's just do the same for this one. So that can go. So we've got some of them in. 1, 2. That's a smaller leaf, a smaller flower. So maybe it's only got some that are in the grit 2 layered. Don't know what that one is, but it's going to get a colour over the top. I think it's possibly just a random leaf. There we are. And then we'll have to give this all a good dry. All right, 1, 2. That can be a leaf as opposed to cream. And I think we're going to pop that one in just for balance. And see how thick these molds are. And it has to be said that the new silicone molds are a lot thinner than these, so potentially a little bit more economical when it comes to your products. Sometimes that's a good thing, isn't it? Right. So we've got greenery on that one, greenery on that one, greenery on that one. I think that's a big berry. So let's just pop a leaf into there that goes with that. I think we're going to have that big leaf there in that green. I might regret that, but I think it will look better with that big leaf in the green. And that's a berry, I think, rather than a leaf over there. Right, excellent. Right, let us not risk contaminating those. I've decided I'm going to make that leaf also in that green. Partly because of its direction. I think it just works better. And the same for that one. And that one. Okay. Are we happy now? I think we're happy now. I think. Right, let's just take that out of there. Leave that to dry. Let's just swap to... No, we're not going to do it. I have painted the edges. I painted the edges all in ivory or cream white before I started. But there's a shelf, a clear step, as if it's icing on a cake. So I was just protecting that for whilst, yeah, that's a bit thick, isn't it? Hey ho. Right, we might need a bit of water adding into that. We'll have some contaminated water, why not? Yeah. So I've painted around the edges where I can. But if I had many hours to paint, then I would probably paint a little bit more carefully and make sure I'd gone down the edges of all of the leaves. But because because we're on the live and it will take me forever to do that, I'm going to actually use a lasso to add a golden tone to some of these. So I'm going to paint these berries in carmine. Yes, carmine, which is a beautiful red. So the edges will have will end up with a more golden hue. I could use a umbre to antique them, but I wanted to stay away from brown for Christmas because I don't really think of brown as a traditional Christmas colour. Call me strange, but if you want, but I don't think of it as a Christmas colour. Let me just pick up that brush. Pick up those leaves now into there. That's white paint tapped in there. That's the ivory that's still wet. There we are. Those I want mainly in that, but then there are some holly berries, or what I'm assuming are holly berries, in amongst this, along with some white mistletoe berries. So let's just paint the holly berry dot into with the red, and we'll leave the those aren't, but there are hollies on here, and it will all come together. I have absolute confidence in my ability to pull it all together and make it look halfway respectable with not spending hours painting. There we are. Right, so let's just pick up some holly berries onto here. So that can be a berry, and that can be a berry, and that can be a holly berry. That's not a holly berry. That is. We're going to have you as a holly berry. I think we're going to have you as a holly berry. Stuck out there, but you're not you. Those aren't, those aren't. Let's just turn this round. That can be holly berries, and those can be holly berries. So essentially I'm choosing the blobs that are next to or close to the obvious holly leaves that are on the mould. Those are not. I've no idea what that's meant to be, so we're just going to leave it as it is. I'm assuming it's just a big berry. It'll become clear ultimately, I think. Excellent. Okay. Right, let us find a scrappy brush. Deliberately a scrappy brush. Hola, okay, Ari, welcome, my darling. So let's just, I don't know how well that's going to dry brush, but it's not my normal preferred brush for dry brushing. So let me find something that I will like for dry brushing. Something that's a flat brush and a piece of towel. There we are. Because dry brush it, the clue is in the word, isn't it? So let's just pick up some of that, pop it into there, and then let's just take that and dry brush out. It's going to work nicely. Thank you, Diane, for that very helpful suggestion. So it's just going to give those. I'm going to add the gold back in. Okay. So by using the brush flat, I'm just tickling the surface of here. Right. Okay. Oops, that was a bit firmer than I wanted. Perhaps we could have had a few more of those leaves as leaves rather than. It is what it is. Yeah. Just add a little bit of that into there. Squash most of that out. Now I've got way too much on that brush, so I'm just going to tap it all off onto a piece of towel so it's not as dark. Yeah. So that's just helping to bring those to life. I could, of course, if you wanted to, just paint those all in the darker red, but I'm rather liking the subtlety of that. Oops, that wasn't very subtle, but hey ho. I think we just need to be careful I don't pick up too much of the green, like I've just done then, because that will be dirty, but there we are. And then you can add as many layers of this as you want onto here. There we are. This is it is a Stamperia mould from the Nutcracker collection, Ari. Is what the mould is. I'll show it you again. I'll just lift it up when I've done this bit and show you. It's a really, I think it's a really useful mould, but if you didn't have it, you could make a wreath for yourself from a different size poinsettia moulds, and arguably you could paint them separately, and that would be just a shed loads easier than my having to paint each one of these on the whole piece. But there we are. So subtle. Right, let's just give that a wee bit of a little of a blast dry from there. Thank you. Right, paint out the way before I have a pickle, and then I'll show you the mould, Ari. There we are. Let's just get rid of this lot. Let's get some varnish onto those when it's dry. Don't slop your piece every which way. Right. Because otherwise we will have an almighty pickle. Yeah. We don't require a mess at this stage, having painted those reasonably proficiently. Well, we hope reasonably proficiently. Yeah. Right, that can go in there, that can go in there, that can go there. Let's just clean that small brush and make sure it's not got too much paint in it. Clean that small brush, because otherwise those will end up cream crackered. Let's give these a blast dry, and then so Ari, this is the mould. It's got lots of different things. It's one of the thin plastic moulds, and it is K3 PTA 4549 if you're looking for it online anywhere. Your Pentacolor distributor in America can buy in any of the clean Stamperia products for you via the Pentacolor ordering page. So if you're really struggling, because I know your normal supplier has shut down, then the Pentacolor suppliers should be able to get it for you. This one is from the Nutcracker collection from last year. Let's just give that a little bit of a dry. Right, scrubbly brush. Let's just get a layer of varnish onto there. Are we spreading some of the colour because it's not completely dry? Answer yes. Does it matter? Well, it's not going to matter. Just add to a slightly distressed feel to our pieces. See, that red is definitely not dry. We shall sort that out in a minute. I don't particularly want the red every which way, and we're going to have to give that a bit more of a dry. So ladies, just let your pieces dry better than I have just done, because otherwise you'll have everything messy. So this is just the matte varnish. hopefully that is dry enough not to move that dry brushing too much. Yeah, that one is working. I will add some gold into the center of there, but not at this stage. Because I have a plan to add lots more gold highlights into these pieces, and then it will become clear as to why I did what I did and haven't worried about the edging. You know, you could paint the whole back of this almost a biscuit color and have it almost as if it's a you know, it's icing shapes on top of a piece of gingerbread. That would work. There we are. Let's just whack this cover over here, and then we can pop these off to the side because they also all need a dry. Let's just take some of the excess off there, otherwise we might be here up till the cows come home. There we are. I'm going to give that a little blast and pop some of this that I've got around me out of the way. That's not the best painted, and I don't particularly like all of that gold, but red that's smudged there, but I think it will, by the time I add the next layer, will have sorted itself out. Eeny meeny, what am I doing? Let's just give these a bit of the glass, start the drying process. And I can pick them up and put them out of the way. We will do so. Yeah, absolutely. I think they do look a bit like ice cookies. So, you know, the eye isn't as you see it, isn't it? You definitely need a good dry. I'll tell you what, but having started them off, I'm going to let them cool down. And pop that on the floor by my fan heater. And we're going to come back to our piece of wood, which isn't very thick and has inconsiderately bowed in the heat. But hey ho. Yeah, that will work very well. I've got a different trick for that, but one that equally I think will work quite well. So we created our background with the red, matte red, and the metallic gold. And you can't put metallic paints on as your top layer with the one component crackle, because metallics don't crackle, but you can put them as your base layer. So we're now just going to take this and whack a goodly there of red of that green, and I am being careful not to overwork this over here, and hope that it crackles. It should do. There's no reason why it shouldn't, except that the board is quite textured, but hey ho, from the layers of paint. Yes, it is crackling. Here we are. So the reds and the golds coming through are going to be subtle because they're going to be in the crackles. That's looking almost black on screen, ladies. I do apologise. It's not. It is a beautiful pine green, but of course pine green is quite dark, isn't it? So let's just crackle that It is crackling. I can see it's crackling. So, and then I'll lift it up. So I will have red and gold crackles underneath it. You definitely, you need a contrast colour underneath. I have a feeling that the gold is going to show through more than anything else, but that's okay. Backgrounds are backgrounds, aren't they? Yeah. So I can see that it is absolutely crackling. There it goes. I don't want to bubble the paint too much, she says. So we have a crackle. There we are. So at that angle, you can see how it has crackled. Yeah, absolutely. So I can see it red in areas, but the gold is definitely the one that is popping through more than anything else. So let me just fiddle that. And then I can pop this down, let it finish where I've got the thicker layers of paint. I did and ah about putting just a softer colour underneath, but I do what. But remember, I'm going to add the other layers to it. Right, I'm going to pop that on the floor and let it dry on its own. Well, with a bit of heat. There we are. That can carry on to its heart content, and then we can blast these dry, and then we'll show you my check trick for micro and glitter, which micro and glitter does work quite nicely. And I do have waxes out on the desk because why didn't you have waxes out? So let's just get these properly dry, because otherwise we'll disturb everything as we move round. And again, I don't want it to bubble. So, left to myself, I would definitely just walk away and let them dry on their own rather than taking a heat gun to them. But of course, I'm alive and we'd be here forever if I do that. But it is important that I dry in the depths of these. And it'll be the big piece that is the problem, I think, rather than anything else. That piece has still got a chunk there. So you are generally better at using thin layers rather than thick layers of varnish. In much the same way as you are better off using thin layers of paint and building up your colours as you go. And there is no rush in this process. It just has to happen. You just have to sometimes just be patient with yourself. Patience not, of course, being my 40s. Once you are ready, you might not be ready. You're nearly ready. You're getting there. Definitely still see some areas that on here that are not quite ready. And the varnish is just going to protect this because I'm going to be wiping back. And because I want to wipe back and the paint's not fully dried, because it'll be surface dry because I've heat dried it, then the varnish will just help protect it and stop me moving too much about. Okay, we'll leave those pieces. So I have out the Pentart Lasso, which is a water-based product. Again, I don't want a decent brush for this, so let me just find one that is moderately cream crackered. And of course, who threw out lots of brushes the other day? Of course, that'd be me. So this is a nice gold. It's a water-based product. So we're now just going to do that, the unthinkable. We're just going to now cover everything. In the gold. There we are. Oh, scary moment time. I do want the edges to be done. There we are. And now I can wipe that back off the surface. There we are. So I've added my metallic-y shimmer. I've added my gold back in. And I've got all of that detail tucked into there. Because you have to have a bit of gold for Christmas, don't you? Of course you do. Red, gold and green. Traditional Christmas colours. Because why not? Now, don't be tempted to do all of these pieces in one go, okay? Because, and this won't work with the metallic paint. You definitely need the lasso for this, okay? And I can just wipe it back off because it's designed to be wiped back off. There we are. It's just giving it a beautiful shower. And it doesn't require any skill, Diane. You know, am I doing myself a disservice? It just doesn't require any skill because it's literally pick it up, scruffle it on into every nook and cranny that you can possibly find, and then wipe it back off the surface. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful effect. Yeah, there we are. And it helps bring out all of the detail, adds a shimmer, and you can take your time. You can add, you can take as little or as much off as you want. It just, it's a technique, I do, on a really regular basis, but having all of the different products just makes it super, super easy. And that's why, we're having a mixture, of products. I could have used an oil paint, or an oil-based product, but they're not, but this is just so easy with it being water-based product, because it just means that I can shove my brushes in the sink. It's just beautiful, Helen. It's just a beautiful, beautiful effect. And that's why I didn't do the edges when I was painting, because I knew what this was good. This effect, it just is, you go from that to that. It's just beautiful, and it's just easy. And I'm going to do this in 2 halves, because otherwise I might well find that it's dried, because once the lassos are dried, they are permanent. Okay, so don't be tempted to do a big piece and think you can just whack it all over a big piece and then come back and wipe it all off, because otherwise you'll not wipe it off the surface. There we are. But it's just it's just beautiful. I never ever get tired of doing this. And you can do it with lots of different colours. You just choose the colour for the effect that you're going for. There isn't a right, there isn't a wrong. And it will sit in the nooks and the crannies. You do need to make sure that you do move to cleaner pieces of cloth when you're lifting it off. Otherwise you don't lift it off, you just smear it around from one place to another. But paint your fingers, why not, woman? Hey ho, there we are. We should be safe now to just do what's left of that piece. So now we definitely have something that I feel reflects a traditional Christmas, with the red, the green, the gold, the little shimmer, the sparkle. Need to do that edge. There we are. And that layer just brings everything together. So even if your painting is not the greatest in the world, because you don't have enough patience or you don't particularly have a steady hand, it just works. It just does work. So, right. We've still got some bits there that are wet. Hey ho. Just bear with, ladies. I might need to take some more red paint over there. Well, that'll get around that one. That'll get around that one. That can go there. That can go there. That can go there. That can go there. So I just need a little bit of a touch up for some of those paint, those colours. And then we can pop. Now did I have it like that? I'm going to add an extra piece onto there. So I think I had that like that. So let us just see what I think about. So we're going to have that one on there. I think we're going to pop that one onto there as for the L. And we're going to pop that into there for the E. And we might not. We might pop that one down there for the there as well. On the other hand, let me move that so that we can see. So we might just do that, and that, like that. There we are. I could add some stenciling onto these pieces. Thank you. But I have a set of rub-ons. So let us just, and unlike last week, we're not going to try putting them on the crackle. Okay. So let's just do a little bit of chopping and hair cutting of some of these pieces. Okay. So let's just pop that onto there. Let's just grab a stick. Pop that piece there. These rub-ons are last year's. And they are still working beautifully. As I say, if you didn't have rub-ons, you could add some stenciling onto these pieces. That would work equally well. She says now she can't grab the end of that. So I will use the heavy body gel ultimately to stick all of this lot down when it's had a proper dry. Okay, at the moment it is not properly dry, and if I try and add them, I'm going to disturb my layers, but we will plod on. Here we are. That piece can go there. That can go there. Thank you. Let's just be really furuga and tight with that piece. Why not? She says, having stuck that down where she didn't particularly want to. There we are. So that can go there. That can go there. We will carry on. We have lots of bits here that we can quite happily add in. I'm going to stick another floral underneath there. Okay, so those will go onto there. That can go there. I can see an area that's going to irritate me. If I move this over, you'll see why. I've got those pieces on there and nothing tucked out the end of there. So I'm just going to pop that onto there. And I hope that this then reflects traditional Christmas for people. There we are. And let's just take some of that one. And I could carry on and add all of these. Thank you. You ladies are so lovely. Let's just chop that up. And add that piece up there. Okay, that can go there. That can go there. Where is the rest of that piece? Let's just add that piece into there. So I'm using my rub-ons to anchor my pieces. Where's the correct piece? From there. There we are, there we are, there we are, there we are, there we are. There we are. So let's just pop that piece into there. Okay. So once it's all dry, I will use my heavy body gel and I will pop stuff down into there to cover the areas that I want to cover. There we are, that's better like that. And I might add some extra dots around from using the contour pen. And the only other question I have is, I have a word that I could stencil. I get it in the right place. That'll be fun, won't it? Right, let me just move that over there, move that over there. We know we want that there, that there, that there, that there. Right. That can go there. That's where have we put our gold paints that we had out earlier. It's tucked behind there. So we're just going to get that so it's straight. So this is one of the stencils from this year's collection. I don't want the white. Obviously, I don't want the white. And I've moved it yet again. Take your time. There we are. That will do. Let's cover that. Let's take my stencil brush. Let's just straighten you up. the word Christmas into there. There we are. That can go in there. That can go in there. That can go there. That will go there. That will go there. Those will go there. That can go there. That can go there. And if I'm really wanting, I can add some splatters. Good evening, Laurie, and thank you. So I might just add that into there. I think actually I'm going to pop that there, and I'll put a few more bits around it. Okay, so once that is dry, properly dry, I will use my heavy body gel, and I will glue everything down in place. So all that's left for me this evening is to wish you all a Merry Christmas. Enjoy making memories with your family, no matter what you are doing, and whatever your beliefs or cultural norms may be. Making memories is appropriate for any time of year and for any one person. And I wish you that for myself and, of course, from the entire Pentart family. Lives for Pentart are going to have a holiday break. And we will be back live the week beginning the 12th of January. So I will be doing my live on the Thursday of that week. So please, ladies, take care of yourselves. Remember to be kind and to make the most of your time together. And I will see you all soon. Bye.